In example 3, we get to find the student mistake, then simplify the expression correctly. So if we look at A, we've got the cosine of x minus sine of x. That whole quantity is being squared. This is a classic student algebra mistake, and that's to try to use the distributive property here. While the distributive property applies to linear equations, but not to this one. So the mistake is trying to distribute that 2 all the way across, and I'll often as well find this to be a minus sign, but even if it's a minus sign, it's incorrect. What we really need to do is write it out. I like to do that. When in doubt, write it out. Squaring something means multiplying it by itself. So now we've got cosine squared, and then we've got, that's cosine times cosine, we've got negative cosine x sine x, that's cosine times a negative sine x. Negative sine x times cosine x is another cosine x sine x. And then we've got a negative times a negative, which is a positive, and then a sine squared over there. I'm going to group these two together, and actually they're just equal to 1. So cosine squared plus sine squared is 1, and then I have 2 of these guys. 2 cosine x sine x. It is possible in some cases to go a little further here. Unfortunately, we don't have any more knowledge right now together as a class to go further with this one. You may see a teacher in the future that wants you to go further, and that's fine. But for right now, with the knowledge that we know, this is the simplest that we can get this one. Let's take a look at the one on the right. Tangent squared plus 1 over the tangent squared. And this student has decided to cancel, or at least, yeah, it looks like they just got rid of the tangents. You can't do that if you have a plus sign here. What you could do is you could, well, you can do a few things. One thing, though, that you could do is take this tangent squared plus 1 and change that into the secant squared. And our variable is y here over the tangent squared. Proceeding here, what I would do, and this is not right, what I would do is I would change this into cosine and sine. We've got the sine squared over the cosine squared. Same variable here, or at least the same quantity. So we've got 1 over the sine squared. Remember your reciprocal relationships. The cosecant has a reciprocal relationship. So this one shouldn't be 1, it should actually be the cosine squared. Be very careful with these types of mistakes. Don't cancel if you have a plus or a minus sign hanging out. And then here, this is a classic algebra mistake. Don't try to distribute. This is not linear. So don't do the distributive property. It just doesn't work. When in doubt, write it out.